Hello and welcome to episode 27 of the Motivational Millennial Podcast. Today we speak with Jake Ballantyne, who is a speaker, and he also has a book coming out all about finding your inspiring reason and vision to move forward past challenges. And it was just a fabulous conversation, very natural. It was like when you meet someone and you say something and they go, "Oh my gosh, I know what you're saying, blah, 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 blah." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, me too, blah, blah, blah." That's exactly what this conversation felt like. But it was much more interesting. You're just going to have to stay tuned if it wasn't just blah, blah, blah.
We're selling this really well. It was such a fascinating conversation, guys. We said blah, blah, blah. And then he said blah, blah, blah. We said blah, blah, blah together.
And we said, "Oh my gosh." No, really, it's amazing. Also, this is Thanksgiving week in the U.S., so happy Thanksgiving to everyone there. Hope you have wonderful, pleasant times with your family and friends, and get to stuff yourself silly, because that's what being grateful is all about, I suppose.
That's right, overconsumption of food.
Yeah, and this is a great time to just remind everyone that so many people that we've talked to have spoken about gratitude journals.
That's right. So if you are thinking of a pre-New Year's resolution, why not start a gratitude journal after Thanksgiving?
Wonderful. Well, stay tuned after the interview when Blake and I will share our biggest takeaways in the after show.
Let's get gobbling.
Hello and welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Ivy LeClaire.
And I'm Blake Brandis.
Our motivational millennial guest today is Jake Ballantyne. Jake is a national award-winning speaker and musician. He is the author of Your Number One Goal, a contributing author in Jack Canfield's Living the Success Principles, and the host of the Focus on the Good podcast. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Ivy, thank you very much.
We're happy to have you here, and we would love to hear more about what you're up to and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, first of all, I want to recognize you guys for putting together this podcast, because I think that there are so many amazing millennials out there, but yet there's so much negativity around us. So first off, I want to say thank you to you guys for doing this and being a voice of our generation, saying, hey, we are doing great things.
Well, thank you for being one of those millennials who are out there putting out such amazing positivity. And I know you'll share more about it, but whenever I check out your videos on your Facebook, I'm just always like, wow, Jake has so much wisdom and positivity to bring into life in a really practical way. So I'm sure we'll dive more into that. But thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. And like you said, I like the way that you said that, putting positivity and motivation, but into a practical way. And that for me, you ask what I'm up to now, and really right now, my biggest passion, I think that passions change from year to year, from month to month. And my thing right now is helping people to find their motivation, because motivation isn't something that can be given to you. You have motivation. People call me a motivational speaker, but I can't motivate you. Motivation would be like if I released a cheetah running behind you, that's motivation. I can't say anything to motivate you. And even then, the cheetah is just inspiring you, because you know the pain that will come from not running as fast as you can. And so the point is like, I can't motivate anyone. All I can do is inspire people to find their motivation. And so in this book that I just wrote, Your Number One Goal, I guess if there was a main thesis of the book, it all comes down to finding a reason that is stronger than your excuse, because I think a better word for motivation is your reason, and you have to have that reason. And that right now is what I'm most passionate about, is helping people find their reasons so that they can actually do something and reach that goal, whatever it is that they have.
So those reasons are pulling you rather than the cheetah metaphorically pushing you.
Exactly. And, whenever you have something that is pushing you, it won't last. It's never going to last. After a couple days, you're eventually going to get bored. You're not excited about it. Tony Robbins talks about the carrot and the stick, that we all need the carrot and the stick to be motivated. Like a horse, there's a carrot in front and there's a stick hitting the horse. And a lot of people will say that the stick is what's more effective. And I do think that the stick can be more effective for right now, changing today, but that wears off. And if you don't have that carrot in front of you, if you don't have that vision, if you don't have that, whatever that thing is that drives you, you're eventually going to quit. And that right now, that's what I'm most passionate about now, is helping people find that.
That reminds me of my decision to give up drinking Coca-Cola. Well,
nice. That's a good decision. That's a great decision.
Well, thanks. And you know what it was? It was what you said. It's the combination of the carrot and the stick. But the stick for me, it was the immediate. I was so tired of, if I hadn't had a Coke by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I'd have a headache. And I was like, man, I just don't want to be in a situation where I feel worried if I'm going to get to drink a Coke by 2 or 3. And so that was the headache was the immediate stick for me. And then the real carrot though was, and now I'm drinking things that are much healthier for me long term and getting me more to a place I want to be in terms of my overall health. And I know you've had a really interesting journey with your health too. Would you mind sharing some of that with our listeners?
Definitely. That has been what has changed my life. It's so interesting when you change your physical body, everything changes, everything else changes. And so for me, I have lost, it's about 60 pounds and I think 58 pounds, so we can round up, let's be positive, round up 60 pounds. That's been over the last 18 months. And for me, I struggled with that year after year after year. And as I started speaking, so I speak and do a combination of music and motivational speaking in the youth market with teenagers, high schools and leadership events. And as I started to have more success with that, my health started to go down even more because I was on the road all the time. And so I would try and fail, try and fail. And then finally, what it really came down to was I had a reason that was so strong that it could push me past any excuse that I have. Before I go into the reason, before I discovered that, I decided that I was going to focus on myself internally, focus on my mind and develop myself through personal development, through Jack Canfield courses, through Tony Robbins courses, through Brendon Burchard courses, through everything that I could to develop my mind and develop myself as a whole person. And when I developed my mind, that's when I started to be able to actually handle things in a way that I was able to change my physical self, change my mind in a way that I could follow the things that I needed to do. Because it's not the knowing. We all know what we need to do. You knew you wanted to stop drinking Coca-Cola, but there's not some amazing tip that you have to do. You just stop drinking it. There are things that we need to do. We all know what they are. The problem is actually getting ourselves to do them. And so after I developed myself into someone who was living at a higher level, then I had the reason before, but I finally realized that I can do something about this and I'm going to take responsibility. And what that reason was is after my wife and I, after we got married and we decided it was time for us to have kids, we soon realized that it wasn't working, and we went into the doctors and they told us that we would never have children and that I was the cause of this and that there was nothing at all that they could do for us. And I spent years in just a deep, dark depression, and I felt like this is unfair. This sucks. This is not fair. Why would this happen to us? And for so long, I had that attitude of, why is this happening to me? Instead of the attitude of, maybe I caused this in some way, shape, or form. And so at that point, I had this revelation kind of a moment. I hit my rock bottom. And when I hit my rock bottom, I was on the couch sitting next to my wife, and I was in tears and I was crying and I was saying, why is this happening to us? We've done everything that we can. I've done everything that I can. And I was yelling it and I was crying it. And I was literally cursing the heavens, cursing God, saying, why would you do this to me? And I said, I've done everything that I can. And then it all of a sudden hit me and I realized that's not true. I have not done everything that I can. I know for a fact that the number one cause of infertility in men is being overweight. And I know that the number two cause is the type of foods that you're eating. I was 270 pounds and I had a horrible diet at the time. And I knew that I needed to make a change. And so finally, when I had that realization that I need to take responsibility and that I can do something, and I started looking at it as, no. I want the family we've always dreamed of more than I want to eat whatever that is, eat the pizza, eat the cake, listen to my excuses. And when I made that decision, it became easy for me because my reason was so much stronger than my excuse. And to fast forward through a very long process, I was able to lose that weight. All sorts of health problems that were going on went away. And coming up very soon, March 15th, we are having our very first baby boy. And thank you.
I'm so excited.
I am so excited about that. And it wouldn't have happened if I did not take responsibility for my situation.
This is such a powerful story and an example of what it means to, when you say have a reason, that made me think of a goal or vision or dream that's way bigger than yourself, and how powerful that can be combined with taking ownership and empowering yourself to actually do what it takes. It's like all of those challenges pale in comparison to what realizing your vision could be like.
Absolutely. I love hearing you say that because to me, everything comes down to that vision. You have to have that vision at the beginning. And if you believe that, if you can see that that's what you can do, if you just sacrifice this and this, that's the thing. If you can actually believe that this can happen if I do this, this, and this. Once you have that vision that's so strong, then you can break through anything. But I think that most people who don't achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve, they just don't have that why strong enough. They don't have the vision that's big enough, or they don't believe that it's even possible. And they don't believe that for whatever reason, they think it's out of their control. But yeah, if you have that vision and you know that it can happen and you believe that it can happen if you do this, this, and this, then that is going to push you through whatever it is that you have to do.
I think that's one of the reasons it can be so hard to change, is because so often a lot of the reasons, at least that I've heard, and I know for myself as well, are I should be doing something different, right?
Yeah.
And feeling like you should do something different is not necessarily the most inspiring reason unless it's attached to that bigger vision. So I'm curious, when you were putting together this idea of your number one goal, what was your vision for the book? Like, what did you want it to accomplish?
Throughout the book, one of the things I make very clear, like the story I just told is, I guess this is the second chapter. The first chapter talks about, the whole concept, but the second chapter tells that story. But after that, I make it very clear that this is not about me. It's about you. It's not about health and wellness. And I'm not a fitness and weight loss coach or guru or anything like that. There are so many more people who are so much more qualified than me at that. What it's about, what I am very good at, is defining a goal and making that happen. And what I want with this book is that the people who read the book, that they can have a actual step-by-step, this is how I find my reason. This is how I grow my reason. And I want people who read this book to be able to, in some way, shape, or form, have the kind of life transformation that I've had. Because it's not just about my physical change, my physical difference. I am a completely different person than I was 2 years ago. I'm living at a completely different plane. And I used to be in a victim mentality. And now I'm in the mentality of everything that happens and comes into my life, I'm in some way, shape, or form responsible for it. And I want people to read this book and then to have that kind of change in their life and be empowered to realize that you can do whatever it is, that thing that you thought was impossible, you can make that happen. So my vision really comes down to individuals. I have a vision about how big I want it to be and how many people I want to read it, and that's all great. But really what it comes down to, the most important thing, is that individuals' lives are changed.
I love the phrase that you used, transformational, or your life transformed. And one of the things that I've really noticed since being in personal development and hearing people's stories and experiencing my own transformation is that oftentimes our dream and our vision, if we have a big enough dream and vision, requires us to be bigger, to grow bigger, to match and realize that vision. And so transformation is inevitable when you start on that path and start pursuing your vision and actually achieve it. It's inevitable because you're going to be a different person from achieving your biggest goals.
Yes, we got to become the butterfly, right?
Yes.
And like onto that, let's just say that I was here right now and I told you the same story and that was the same why. And I told you that, but you know what? The doctors were right. It didn't change anything because I saw every specialist you could think of. And I told them, this is what I'm going to do. And they told me that it's not going to change anything. You still won't be able to have children. And I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to come on here and say this is wrong and that, but I don't have that much faith in a lot of things to do with Western medicine. And he says there's no possible way. But I say, you know what? I'm going to do everything that I can. And then at the end of this, at least at the worst case scenario, even if it doesn't work out, I can look at myself in the mirror and this time actually mean it when I say the words, I've done everything that I can. Mm. And now, when I'm here today, if I were to tell you that it did not happen and it still didn't work, I would still be grateful that this happened because my life has changed so much and I've become the kind of person, I've become the person that I needed to be to reach my next step in my vision of inspiring more people and taking what I do with youth to a whole nother level, not just with youth, but to adults and to all people. And I was at the point to where I wasn't ready to have that kind of impact on people. And now I can say that there's a quote by Oprah where she says that whatever happens to you, or whenever it appears that something is happening to you, it is always happening for you. And I believe that more than anything.
That's a really impactful framing of the mindset as well, because I think when you say taking responsibility for the things that happen in your life, that's not meaning to say shaming people, saying, you know, all these terrible things in your life are your responsibility. I think what you're highlighting is it's actually putting you in the driver's seat and saying these things are that kind of radical acceptance, right? These things are the way they are. And I have the power to do everything I can to try to change them or improve them or, you know, whatever you're trying to accomplish. And I really love that mindset shift. I'm also wondering, when you were starting out in this journey to be a speaker, to be a personal development, I don't even know what the right word is. I'm trying to find
professional.
Professional. That's right. I thought wizard was a little
wizard.
No, I like wizard. Let's go with wizard.
It could be wizard. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But as you were starting out on this path, was there a defining moment for you that helped you really recognize the sense of purpose?
Okay, I'm going to share two experiences because when he said define a sense of purpose, yes, there was that. That's what got me into this whole world. But then there was also a defining moment that actually made my career happen. So first I'll tell you about my defining moment in my personal journey. And that is growing up, I was considered learning disabled. I was in the special education program. I didn't read a book cover to cover till I was 18. I barely graduated from high school from some amazing help from some great teachers. Miss Daly, if you're listening, thank you. But I went on to college, and my first try at college, I mean, this sounds like, I mean, you have to try to do this bad, but I literally failed every class. I mean, one semester of Fs, you know, solid Fs, a 0.0 GPA. I'm an overachiever. At that point, there was one thing that me and Pasadena City College agreed on, and that was that neither of us wanted me to be there anymore. So I was asked to leave. I couldn't come back for a year. And at my 18-year-old self, I just basically said, well, screw you. If you don't want me to be here, I don't want to be here anyway. This isn't for me. I don't want to do this. And I went on and I did a service mission with my church. And the person who was in charge of all of us, called me into his office one day and he asked me what I was going to do with my life later on and if I was going to go to college. And I just told him, I'm not cut out for college. I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. And he basically, make a long story short, he says, first of all, you need to stop lying to me. I was like, what are you talking about? He says, you need to stop lying to me. I'm like, look, I tried, I failed. There's nothing I can do about it. And he says, you don't understand. You think that I'm saying that I don't believe that you went to college. I believe that. You think that I'm saying that I don't believe that you did very well. I believe that you failed. I believe that, but I don't believe that you tried. And he looked at me and he says, look, you're a smart person. You're an intelligent person. I see you here. And then I went through all of my excuses, all of my things. I'm learning disabled. I was special ed. I can't read. And he goes, look, those are all your excuses, but those are just called so what? Everyone has excuses. And if you just quit now, it's not even about college. The point is that you did something and then it got hard and then you quit. And if you don't go back, you're going to set up a pattern for yourself for the rest of your life where when things get tough, you quit. Things get tough, you quit. And I don't want that for you. And when he shared that with me, he challenged me to go back to school and he challenged me to make it completely different. He also challenged me to surround myself around the right people, that right support team. And he said, when you go back, do everything that you can. So I saw tutors, I got extra help. I did everything that I could. And this time was completely different. And I did really well in college. I graduated from college and I never thought that I could do that. And that whole experience was, I guess, my first transformation. That's what got me into this to begin with, because I wanted young students who maybe had a similar story to me to believe that, hey, just because someone says you can't do something doesn't mean that you can't. Or just because you don't think you can do something doesn't mean that you can't. Just because, you failed once, who cares? You can move forward and you can make things happen. So that was the beginning of that.
I have goosebumps.
That's so inspiring. Yeah.
I want to give that guy a hug right now.
Oh, that guy. I thought you were talking about me. I was like, oh, we can do a virtual hug.
Oh, I want to give you a hug too. That's amazing.
That is such a testament, I think, to the power of a caring adult who steps in and believes a bigger version or a greater possibility for your future than you currently believe for yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's it that Josh Shipp says? Every kid's one caring adult away from a success story.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I mean, I was technically an adult at the time. I was 19 or maybe even 20 at the time. But, let's be honest. When you're 19 or 20, you're still a kid.
Yes.
And, I've talked to him about this whole thing. His name was Steve, and I talked to him about what he did for me. And he knows that he helped me, but he does not remember this actual conversation. And I think it's kind of cool because that just shows that this was something that he did on a regular basis, just trying to inspire people and help all of us who were there with him. And he doesn't really remember it. I have literally told that story to, I think it's about 250,000 teenagers now.
Wow.
It's one person made that difference to me and completely changed my life.
That's amazing. I think it's so surprising how much what you can say to someone can have an impact. And it's not even something that you think was like the most wise thing ever. I mean, I know for myself, I had a mentor in college who was my advisor. I was a part of a student organization. And at the time, honestly, I was 21, 22, and I was just partying all the time. And he said to me, Ivy, I think you should go sing karaoke. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Sing karaoke,
Nice.
which I love it. He's like, and I think you should do it totally sober. And I was like, what? It was so and it was the most offhanded. I think if I went to him and told him, do you remember saying, he's not going to remember. That's the most offhanded, not the most wise, but, and at the time, honestly, I didn't do that. But, years later, after I started practicing more sobriety, I took a year off and really when I was singing karaoke sober, 5 years later, I still remember that advisor giving me this perspective and the value of doing something that you love and experiencing it fully without any kind of substance. And it's just the most simple phrase that he said to me that I still remember. And so that can be such it's a testament to how you don't know how much of an impact you're having with them. It might blow your mind.
Totally. I think that people look at people like us, people who are speakers, people who are podcasters, people making videos. They sometimes think they are the ones who can make a difference and not me, because I don't have a platform, so I can't do anything. But if you look at your life and you think about the people who really made a difference, I mean, yes, now I can say that people like Tony Robbins and like Jack Canfield, like they've made a big difference in my life. But in my formative years, I wasn't seeking personal development. I wasn't watching videos about becoming the best version of myself. I didn't care about that stuff. It was the caring adults in my life who reached out to me and cared enough about me just for no other reason than they cared about me, nothing to gain from it. And they are the ones that reached out, took the time, and made a difference to me. It's not people like us. It's those everyday people who do something to touch the lives of someone else.
So what was the second story? You said you wanted to tell two stories.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear the other story.
The second story was, so when I was wanting to get into speaking and I started, did some training about how to become a speaker, and I specifically wanted to talk in the youth market because that was my story that I shared earlier. That was what I wanted to share. And I was hesitant. I was scared. I was fearful. I was doing it kind of here and there, but I wasn't committed to it. And I was working a job as a door-to-door salesman. I was selling Dish Network door-to-door. Not a fun job, by the way. And I was doing that. It was a commission-only job, and I did well at it. Communicating is one of my strengths. It's one of my gifts. So it was fairly easy for me to do, and I was doing well at it. But there was one day where I just went, I'm just being completely stupid right now, because I'm going out working my tail off to sell something that I don't care about at all. I was going to sell TV. I mean, sure, I like TV, but I'm not passionate about people having Dish Network in their homes. And I realized that I had this false sense of security because I thought, I have this job. That's my security. I have a job. But I realized I don't have a job. I'm a salesman. This is 100% commission. So if I don't sell anything, I don't make any money. And so it's time for me to fully believe in myself and be in my own corner, start supporting myself and say, you know what? If I go in full time, I'm just a salesman for myself, trying to book myself as a speaker. So that day, right then, I didn't even come home and think about it. Right then and there, I went to my supervisor and I said, sorry, man, this isn't for me anymore. I'm done. And I checked out. And the next day, I started working full-time as a booking agent for myself. And I decided if I was going to spend as much time as I was trying to sell stuff door to door, selling myself as a speaker, I knew that I could do it. And I gave it my all. And I gave everything that I had to it. And I haven't had another job since then. And it was that moment where I had that realization that I need to be on my own team, and I need to believe in myself enough to give myself the kind of effort that I was giving to someone else, where there's no security in other things. We have this false sense of security. Even if you have a job, I mean, if you're passionate about that job and it's something you want to do, that's awesome. But if you're not happy with your job, realize that the moment you are not beneficial to the owner of that company, you're gone. There's no security at all. And so when I had that realization, that's when things changed. And this has been my full-time career ever since that day.
So what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced since then, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I would definitely say that my biggest challenge that I faced was the challenge that I talked about my health and infertility and my weight loss. That was the biggest challenge. I think you're kind of looking for a career-based thing, but the reason why I'm talking about it is because it affected me in my career, because I spent probably about 4 years feeling like a complete hypocrite, because I would get on stage and I would tell kids about focusing on the good, about being positive, about going for your dreams. You can do anything. But yet here I was, where I had a goal of losing 60 pounds and I wasn't doing anything about it. And I wasn't making those changes. I felt like an imposter. I just felt like a hypocrite. And it affected me, and it affected my stage presence, and it affected the way that I worked. It was killing me on the inside. It was something that was so difficult. That's kind of around the time when I made the decision to start focusing on building myself and start focusing on investing in myself as a person, not just investing in my business, but investing in me. And when I started to do that, that was the time when things started to change. And so, yes, I overcame it by taking responsibility, but I really overcame it by deciding that I was valuable enough to make a change, that I mattered enough to make a change, and that I deserved more. And when I had that realization, that's when I started to actually make changes in my life.
I think that is a fantastic testimonial for the value of personal development, because so often it's framed as, well, Jay, you're just focusing on yourself. Shouldn't you be focusing on other people? But you realized exactly the point, which was by focusing on yourself, you knew you could really tap into and develop that potential to reach so many more people. And you just had the long-term perspective. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, coming out of a formal education system, especially, is there's always this idea that you have to be working to please somebody else. And so the focus always needs to be on your boss or your teacher or your parent or your partner in a relationship. And so often I think there's a coping mechanism that says, well, fine, if I can't focus on myself, then I'm not really that valuable or I'm not worth that much. And so I'm going to do things that aren't good for me in the long run because it feels good and it helps me escape this feeling. And your story is such a powerful reminder of what can happen when we help people really invest in themselves unapologetically and celebrate those investments and those transformations.
Absolutely. It's so true. I mean, it's the old analogy about the masks on the airplane. You got to put your air mask on first before you help your child. You can't help someone beyond where you're at. You have to do that. Here's the thing. People who are the most successful, they are investing in themselves still, even though they are, it's to maintain that. And you can't serve people beyond where you're at right now.
I love that analogy. You say that old analogy. It's the first time I've,
okay. Well, never mind.
It was new to me. I love that. It's so clear. What a great, absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. I know that it can be so challenging, particularly around our bodies, because there's so much messaging around our bodies and what our bodies should be and should look like. So it's very difficult to find that voice inside yourself that is inspirational to you and for you, and not, oh my gosh, I have to do this so that other people will, think I'm attractive or respect me more or whatever. No, I think that's really a testament to it and very inspirational.
This just came to me right now. This isn't something I think about that often, but it is what happened. I think that my biggest change started the day that I realized that if I didn't love myself at 270 pounds, I wasn't going to love myself at 210 pounds. Mm-hmm. And until I had that of I deserve that I can and started acting as if, that's a big principle that I believe in. People ask, well, what did you do? Like, it really came down to, I thought, well, if I was fit in shape at the level I wanted to be, how would I act? What would be my daily actions? And then eventually my physical body met my actions. The same thing. If I wanted to be happier, if I was a happier person, how would I act every day? I started doing that. And then I started being happier. If I was successful in business, how would I act? And I started doing that. And then eventually my actual life met my actions. So I don't know. That was just a thought that came to my mind right then.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason we love having people like yourself on the podcast, is so people can see, here is someone who has accomplished whatever they have accomplished. But I think most importantly, how are they acting in the world? How are they thinking about things? And can we adopt some of those thought patterns or practices in our own lives? And I think there's a lot to what you're saying. I'm wondering, is there other advice that you would give to millennials in addition to the font of wisdom that you've already shared? Some advice for the millennials who are on this journey towards fulfillment and success?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this. And, here's the thing. We always, us as millennials, people always want to talk to us. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you felt this way before, but does it seem like because you guys are actually doing something that people come up to you and say things bad about millennials and go like, oh, you're different? Like you're the one. Does that ever happen?
sometimes I think it's often framed as, I really wish you could talk to this particular millennial in my life.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Which, to your point, is that implication, right? That like,
Totally.
you guys like got your stuff together, but Steven over here, he really needs some assistance.
Totally, exactly. And so here's what I want to say, actually. What I want to say, there's this beautiful quote. I won't say who said it until afterwards, but the quote was talking about the younger generation. He says, the children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Do you know who said that?
I'm going to guess Aristotle.
Someone close. It was Socrates who said.
Oh, so close.
Socrates said that. Yeah.
Nice.
And he's talking about the children now, the youth of today, whatever year this was. And what I want to say is that there is nothing new about an older generation lumping a young generation into this place of they are bad. They're not like us. Kids, what's the matter with kids today from Bye Bye Birdie? There's nothing unique about that. That's just cyclical. That's just every generation. And we're different from the generation past. We're different from Generation X. We're very different from the baby boomers. But that different doesn't mean bad. And so I say, be proud of the fact that you're a part of this great generation. We are a part of a generation that cares about things. We care about making a positive difference in the world. We care about fulfillment and helping others be fulfilled. We care about acceptance and integration of all people. We care about so many good things. And maybe sometimes it's true. Maybe sometimes our head is a little bit too in the clouds. But you know what? If you have your head in the clouds, but then you actually take millennial dreams with old school work ethic and pull those two things together, then you're absolutely unstoppable.
I want to take this soundbite and put it on our website. This is such a message of motivational millennial. Like, how do we take the best of us or the best characteristics that we have naturally and combine it, with old school work ethic. I love that phrasing.
Totally.
High five.
Yeah, bam. High five. I'm doing a long distance high five.
There you go. We do it virtual. That's very millennial of us.
Yes, virtual.
Yeah, you're right.
High five emoji.
Yes, that's right. It's a virtual conversation. Well, you're right. There's this assumption that the worldview that currently exist will be the worldview forever. And that idea has certainly continued throughout history, as you're saying. So at any given point in time, during the Great Depression, it's going to be like this forever. During the 60s, revolution's going to happen forever. During the late 90s, man, the internet is going to be the most profitable thing forever.
Yeah, and it's going to go buy a bunch of .coms, like literally a bunch of URLs and just sell them, because that's worth something.
That's exactly right. I know. For better or for worse, I did very minimal investing growing up. But in 1999, I was really convinced that BarnesandNoble.com was the next big thing. So I wasn't totally wrong. It's just that Amazon happened to be the next big thing.
Yep.
So, but to your point, there is this cyclical worldview. And so I think even for us as millennials, when we look at the generation who's below us, who are sometimes called digital natives or Gen Z, I think I have to remind myself too that they are interacting from a worldview and a framework that is different from the ones that we grew up in as millennials. And I really have to support them in tapping into what's best about their values and what they care about and the way they communicate, while also reinforcing some of the more timeless principles that we've seen help people be successful, which is exactly what you're talking about.
It's hard to do this because wisdom comes with age. But if you can become wise enough to see the good, my podcast is focused on the good, but that's really what I believe in life. If you can focus on the good things that you have and realize that maybe there are some not so good things about our generation, though there's nothing unique about that. So you take the good from our generation, but then there's no sense leaving all the wisdom from the past aside. Let's learn from the past and learn tried and true tactics that will help us be successful, but just add that on to the things that already make us and you and whoever's listening great.
This is why I'm such an advocate for having close friends of all ages, because there's nothing that gives you more perspective than having, I mean, one of my best friends is in her mid-60s. And she's one of my best friends for 8 years now. So I've got to,
amazing.
Be a part of her life. And she loves having my perspective too, as someone, from that different generation. So it can be so valuable to have friends from all age groups for sure.
Totally. And I was just thinking, like, you don't think that the World War II generation said bad things about the baby boomers in the 60s?
Oh, yeah.
You know what's going on. Yeah, they were absolutely appalled. And then you got the baby boomers saying the same things about us now. And it's like, well, we just need to realize that it's just different doesn't mean bad. Different means different. And that's a good thing. And we can just learn from it.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a transition, but we want to move into what gets you motivated. And so we'd love to hear about your morning routine. What's your proverbial cheetah in the morning that gets you moving throughout your day?
My morning all comes down to gratitude. That was the biggest thing that I took from Tony Robbins' course that I took, was I needed to start every morning with what he calls the hour of power. And I can't say that I'm 100% on this, but I can say I do pretty good at it. And when I do, the day is so much better. And when things aren't going well, like let's say over like a couple months, I realize, hey, I haven't been doing my hour of power every morning, so I need to do that. And what that starts with is the second I wake up, I drink a tall glass of water and I start walking, like immediately. Like my shoes are set up to where like I would have to kick my shoes or trip over them on the way to the kitchen or on the way to the bathroom. Like I set myself up for success, so I have to do it. So I put my shoes on and I start walking. And as I'm walking, getting my body moving, getting the blood flowing, getting ready for the day, I just think about gratitude, everything that I'm grateful for, everything from things that you would think of that you're grateful for to things that are struggles in my life, and being grateful for, imagining and envisioning why these trials are going to be there for me, how they're going to help me in the future, and being grateful in the trial instead of just after and for it. Then I think about every person in my life that I'm grateful for. And then from there, I start visioning my future, visioning the day, and I get myself pumped up about this is who I am and this is what I can accomplish. And I do that. Then from there, I come in and I do a yoga program almost every day. But I do some form of exercise, then fill myself up with something positive every morning, whether I'm reading a book, listening to an audio program, watching a video. And I do that all before breakfast, and then have a healthy breakfast, go off to work.
Nice. I like it. And is there a motivational quote or book that has changed your life, in addition perhaps to the Socrates quote?
Yes. Okay, so the book would be Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. That book was absolutely life transformational to me. Incredible. And I would advise anyone who wants a change in their life to go and get that book. It's really big and kind of intimidating, but it is just pure gold. Absolutely amazing. And then for a quote, I wanted to share this because of what's going on right now. I don't know when this will be aired, but as of right now, the election happened very recently. And there's a song that has really shaped my worldview. There's a song by the Avett Brothers. They have a song called Head Full of Doubt. And in the lyrics, they say, "Your life isn't changed by the man who's elected. If you are loved, you're never rejected. Decide what to be and go be it." And to me, it's like, you know what? And this is not about what this is. I would say the same thing regardless, whichever way this election went. That's not about that. What it's about is external forces do not change. At least my interpretation. I don't know what they actually meant by it, but external forces are not going to change your life. What matters is not external forces. What matters is the people in your life. If you're loved and you love, you're never rejected. And then decide what to be and do it. Stop trying and stop excusing and stop all those things. Just decide what to be, go be it. Don't let any external force stop you from your potential.
This reminds me of how powerful living in fear can be. I mean, it goes back to what you were speaking of in the beginning, which is being responsible for where you are. And I love the word responsible because it reminds me of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He breaks down the word responsible to mean like response-able, so that when things happen to you externally, you can respond rather than react to them.
Yes.
And when you are coming from a place of fear, unfortunately, it results in more reactivity rather than proactivity or response that's well thought out. And over time, that makes a huge difference. So the way that you view your external circumstances and your power and your orientation toward that makes a huge difference in what your reality becomes over time.
100% agree. I love it.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for being here. And would you mind telling our audience how they can find you and your work online?
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure to be with you guys. This has been a lot of fun. Right now, I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but right now you can get a free physical copy of Your Number One Goal at yournumberonegoal.com. You just have to pay shipping and the book comes to you. So yournumberonegoal.com. I would love it if every one of you gets that book. There's a lot more to what I said here, and it's all in that book. And then the other thing is my podcast is focusonthegood.com. Going to be starting up season 2 of episodes just in the next couple weeks.
Hey, these are such generous offerings. I'm going to take you up on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of your podcast, as we're wrapping up here, would you mind just sharing your Diamond Dallas Page story? Because I think that's so awesome. Probably a great way to end this conversation.
I'm not really sure what part of the story. There's so much to the story, but basically the very first guest on my podcast was Diamond Dallas Page, who was a hero of mine as a child. If you're not aware, he's a professional wrestler. It's pretty cool to sit across from someone that you had his face on your t-shirt as a 8th grader. And basically what it came down to was back early on when I was trying to get fit and in shape and trying to transform my body, I was introduced to this yoga program. DDP Yoga is what it's called. And it's a program that he created based out of, he had a hard time, had an injury. And once again, what happened to him happened for him because he's inspired and helped thousands and thousands of people through this program. It's unbelievable. And I bought the program and I decided I was gonna do it, but I was still kind of up in the air about it. I hadn't really started taking action. Travel a lot. I was on a layover, and this was like a week after the DVDs arrived in the mail. And I'm in this layover. I'm in the Salt Lake airport. I'm on a layover. He's on a layover. And he's walking by to his next flight as I'm walking by, and I see him, and I'm like, dude, Diamond Dallas Page, this is awesome. And we start talking, and at first he's like, sorry, man, like I'm really happy to hear from you, but I got to catch my flight. And I was like, oh, that's totally cool, but just want to tell you, I just got DDP Yoga and I'm stoked to start it. And then he's like, well, I can, they're going to hold it's assigned seats. It doesn't matter. I can wait. So then we just talk, and we talk probably for like 20 minutes, and we start doing yoga in the corner at the airport, in the terminal. Anyway, so I get really involved with that program and with that community, which it's really a combination of inspiration and the workout. It's really incredible. And I got really involved with them, and really I'm one of their success stories of using their program. That's the program that I used to transform my body. And then when it was time to do the podcast, I wanted him to be the very first guest, and he was gracious enough to agree to that. And what an incredible interview it was, and honor to go out to Georgia and see him in person and do this interview. Pretty cool how things have come full circle. I'm not the guy who says that every single thing in life happens and means something and whatever. I'm not that guy, but I can tell you that I do not believe that we ran into each other at a random airport in that random exact time. I don't believe that was an accident. And he was a big part of pushing me to make something happen, to start taking action.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. It was fun.
It is. It's just a full circle. I thought was a beautiful way to end it. So, Jake, thank you for sharing so much wisdom and your personal stories and narrative with us today. And we really appreciate you being here.
All right, Blake Ivy, it was my pleasure.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Workshops. Whether your desire is to connect with other millennials or to provide personal or professional development opportunities to your community, our workshops are customized for your needs. Visit www.motivationalmillennial.com/workshops to learn more.
Welcome to the after show of our conversation with Jake Ballantyne. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, there was so much alignment in our conversation. I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I could talk to this person for a really long time.
Yeah, it was really great because Ivy and I have been talking recently about really focusing in our work with Motivational Millennial on change and transformation. And Jake was so in that theme throughout the entire conversation.
Yeah, it was, the universe was nodding. I mean, we were literally having the conversation earlier in the morning, and that was our first interview that we did after that conversation. And
he literally said transformation.
Yeah,
like life transformation.
We jumped on it.
It was awesome. I liked so much of what Jake said, especially around the idea of your reasons being stronger than your excuses. And I wanted to dive in a little deeper on that because sometimes I can beat myself up by using that as a bit of a cudgel and saying, if only you had better reasons, you wouldn't be making so many excuses and, not doing some of these things that you really know deep down you want to do. But I think what he was really getting at is it's about creating those reasons and then setting up structures in place to support and remind you why those reasons are so important to you. And the reason I emphasize the structures is because it can be really hard to remember or always feel inspired or always feel motivated to do the things that we know deep down we really want to do. So when we are feeling the inspiration and motivation, I think it can be really helpful to set up things that make it easy. For example, Jake said, putting out his shoes right next to his bed. So he literally either has to put them on or trip over them first thing in the morning. And that's a great example of a structure that supports the goal he has of getting exercise first thing in the day. And so when I'm thinking about things that we can do to support ourselves in whatever goal we're trying to achieve, I think using those moments of motivation, not always to try to get everything done in the next hour, but more, okay, cool, while I'm in this moment and this mode of really positive energy, what can I set up around me to support me when I'm not feeling that motivation and momentum?
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good idea and a really great perspective. When I think about your reasons being greater than your excuses, I'm thinking of it from a less tactical lens. I'm thinking of it from a visionary, it's like you're so excited and motivated, but what you're speaking to is sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're not. And so how do you get from, not having that clarity, not having that vision, or moments of not having that clarity and vision, and setting yourself up with systems that will help you find that? So I think there's two problems to solve. One is finding that vision in the first place, even having any idea and clarity around what that is. And then the second, which is what you're speaking to, is finding and reconnecting with that vision and that clarity of around the vision over and over and over again, even when you're feeling a little lost or a little disconnected. What systems can you put in place so that you can continue on your path and continue with that perspective of these other little challenges that are coming up in my way are totally not a big deal.
Yeah, because I think we can put so much pressure on ourselves to have to constantly be focused on our goals and what we want most in life, or feel that we should at least feel that kind of intense pressure and focus. But I think it makes it so hard on ourselves and puts so much stress that doesn't need to be there. One of the great things about the human brain is our ability to plan and to design systems and habits. And so I think it's really an act of kindness and self-care to set up things, even like an accountability buddy for, let's say you want to go exercise or something, or for me, setting an early morning meeting or early morning call or early morning activity really can help me be focused first thing in the morning on what I want to achieve rather than allowing a potential wash of time, which it could end up being a good, strategic, productive, creative time. But if I'm not careful, it could also turn into the spiral of I have so many things to do and I'm so stressed out about all of them and Facebook for 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's releasing the expectation that when you're feeling good and when you have clarity and when you're feeling super motivated, that state of being is going to last forever now because I totally understand everything. And I mean, that's how it feels. Like, it feels so powerful. You're like, nothing could ever derail me from this feeling. And that expectation can make not being in that feeling anymore, which is totally inevitable, particularly devastating. And so I totally agree with you in that it's about self-compassion, setting that up and knowing that we fluctuate between happy, sad, and motivated, not motivated. That's totally normal. Change is very normal. And that's like the only consistent thing. And I know for myself, I've removed the decision of how to start my day because I know that no matter what, I need to wake up and go for a walk. It's so funny the day I didn't jump in and start talking to him about it because we were talking so long and it could last forever. But it's so funny that this is something that Jake brought up, but he actually explicitly said that what he does is go and start walking immediately upon waking. And I do the exact same thing just because when I wake up in the morning, if I think about all the stuff I want to do or all the stuff I feel like I need to do, I would just sit here and be paralyzed. So I just have to get up and go, and it totally shifts my mind state. I listen to some kind of awesome podcast and it gets me back into and reconnected to that vision and the bigger reason. Absolutely.
That feeling you described happens a lot to me when I'm writing. I'll be like, man, this is so easy. Why am I not able to be in this amazing flow state all the time? I'm just coming up with this great stuff and it's just flowing, blah, blah, blah. And then it's maddening to your point because then when I sit down later and I don't feel like I can access that place or I'm trying to access it and it's just every sentence is a struggle, I beat myself up exactly what you're saying because I think, but remember you said, oh, this was so easy. It's just like flying. Why can't I do this all the time? You're right.
Which makes it worse.
Yes.
You know,
so
and then
worse.
you get into a spiral of disappointment and expectations and shame, you know, and then you're totally not able to be productive. It's the acceptance of how you're feeling actually helps you move through it and move past it a lot faster than wishing or wanting to not be having those feelings in the first place.
That is a lot of wisdom.
It's so much practice.
It is. It is. What else did you enjoy from Jake's conversation?
Well, it's funny that you brought up how we are wanting to move more into speaking specifically about change and transformation a little bit more, because that was one of the pieces that really stuck out to me, is the piece about transformation. I think I said this actually in the interview that sometimes, and actually the best dreams are so big that they require us to grow so that we can be big enough to achieve them, because that is what makes the ingredients for transformation. We realize that we have to give up who we currently are and take steps forward into the unknown and take steps forward over fear thresholds and get past fear. And we have to do all of these things over and over again to reach that goal or that dream. And by the time you've done it, you're a different person. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's unavoidable. And I think that on some level, this could be why we don't always make those changes and we don't always move forward, because there is a sense of loss around who we currently are, who our identity is, how we navigate the world, which comes with any type of change. And so to set out to create that kind of environment where you're having to leave things behind, leave old habits behind and old ways of thinking and maybe even friends. It takes a lot of bravery. And I think it seems like we need to implement this more. We need to create this habit, but I think there can be a larger pull to prevent pursuing your passion and your dreams. And that is staying the same, staying where it's comfortable. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you know you're going to be a different person at the end of the day if you do achieve that dream.
Which is why I think when you do have those moments when you're really frustrated or you just can't take it anymore or you're just thinking, something's got to change. That is such a good thing and a powerful place to come from, because in that moment, you have some energy that you can harness towards pushing through whatever of those boundaries or restrictions or concepts of safety or loss, I think, are holding us back. I think they're rare for some people. I know certainly myself, I don't typically hit that emotional state too often. But when I do, increasingly, I'm trying to use that as a positive thing and say, okay, I'm making a decision right now. And I'm going to, there certainly is like the sort of tactical, I'm going to take some action to support that later when I'm not feeling quite so like energized and confident. But I think so often we think, I'm in this frustrated space and I don't know what to do. And we feel sometimes powerless or like that's a bad thing. But I think it's actually a great space of opportunity because you've got some momentum to go somewhere else other than where you've always gone before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that state can be your greater reason that something has to change. There has to be something better than this or more than this. But there can also be, like to Jake's point, the greater reason being something you want to create so badly. I mean, I definitely have had moments of transformation that some were coming from necessity and removing myself from situations of suffering and in some cases abuse. And then there are moments that came from this deep desire and knowing and wisdom and truth, all of those powerful words and experiences that, I'm going to stop speaking abstractly and just give an example. The Coactive Coach training begins with 5 courses that last 3 days each. And in the courses, you are, of course, practicing coaching, but you are also being coached and you are experiencing a lot of the transformation that comes from being coached, right? You experience transformation. You cannot help but change by the end of those 5 courses. And I remember there was a day that the way I was viewing the world was shifting so much that I knew I couldn't look at it the same way again. And I had such a strong call to be the most present and loving person that I could be. And that meant releasing the focus and attention on myself that I'd spent years doing so that I could heal from old wounds. So in that moment, it was like I was realizing that I have to release these old wounds, or that these old wounds can be released. Like I was noticing, oh my gosh, I am whole. I am actually a different person than I was, and I have to let go of that. Like I could feel myself changing, and I was like freaking out, y'all. I went to lunch, I was like crying, because it was just this intense knowing that by the end of that weekend, I was not going to be the same person that I was before that. And I transformed, meaning I turned from a caterpillar to a butterfly, and there's no going back to the caterpillar. And so it was scary, but I did it and I let it come and I let that happen because I cared so much about being the most present and authentic coach that I could possibly be.
I think it really is about who do you want to be for the world in a lot of these situations? Who do you want to be for yourself first and foremost? And then who do you want to be for the world? Because you're right. In the example I was giving, that frustration, that energy, it is sort of the proverbial stick, the cheetah.
Sure.
And, it's pushing you. It's saying, something else, not this. And that's cool. But to your point, then if not this, then what? I think the then what is, who do you want to be for the world? So, okay, I don't want this anymore. Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? But really, who do I want to be, I think, is the core of it. Because the action proceeds from the being. Sounds like a Heidegger treatise right now. A treatise on being. Not to get super ontological, but you're welcome. Hey, I had to study high theory for 4 years of my life, and then I decided I didn't want to spend the rest of my life studying high theory, so I can't help it if I've been influenced by all of the critical theorists. But anyway, not to totally digress. The point is, action emerges from being, because when you're being the best version of yourself or the person you want to be, you know what action to take in those situations. Like you're saying about coaching. When you're present and in that place as a coach, you couldn't necessarily know what you're going to say next if I asked you, but in the moment you know what to say because you're being that person you want to be in that coaching relationship.
So I think that the real question is, who do you want to be, motivational millennial listeners? Hopefully someone who listens to us next week.
I thought you were going to say something really inspiring there. So I was like, hey, come back and listen to our podcast. I mean, I do hope you are someone who comes back and listens next week, but I also hope that you find inspiration and motivation and passion in your life. Can I say any more buzzwords?
I mean, I just hope that people know that we hope that for them and we want that for them by now. I was trying to do a clever sign-off. I'm practicing my clever sign-off skills.
No, it was. But see, I wanted to continue our practice of totally blowing up the end of the after show into the outro. So
it's a gift.
It is.
Happy Thanksgiving.
That's right. We all have a lot to be grateful for. What was that final quote? You had a quote you've been writing on your arm today?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying out potentially a new tattoo. It's, to be here is glorious.
To be here is glorious.
Yeah, just being alive, just being awake. It's glorious.
That's right.
That's it.
It's a great perspective. I think over the Thanksgiving holiday, if we can just appreciate being here, that'll be great.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, that was a 3-minute exit from the after show.
We love you all so much right now.
Thanks. You're still listening.
If you are here, we're giving you a hug.
That's right. If you're still listening, I will send you a 4-line rap. How about that? Email blake@motivationalmillennial.com if you're still listening to this, and I will write you a custom quatrain about any topic. You can just put any topic in there that's PG-13 or lower.
It's like a Disney quatrain.
Sure, I don't watch a lot of television or movies, but yes, I could do my research and write you a quatrain or whatever you want. All right, we have to end this now. Thanks for listening. We hope you tune in next week. Bye. For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!